Hi. Okay, this is a new Nigeria with Olawale Oluwade. On today's episode, I'll be speaking on what I've titled The Making of the Chinese Millennium. I'll be speaking on this episode on the ascendancy of the Chinese millennium. And I was particularly careful not to use the term Chinese empire because everyone needs, and the reason why I said Chinese millennium is because everyone needs China. Everybody needs China. How? I am acutely aware even the Chinese leadership themselves seem to be cognizant of the trap of empire building, the attendant internal risks of such and contradictions, and the adverse consequences such empire building heralds. And this is typical Chinese smart decision making and imbibing critical lessons of history from other failed empires. Now, our strategic objective, overall strategic objective, are two pronged. Number one, meeting the needs, the economic needs of the rest of the world. And then two, ensuring or guaranteeing the welfare of her over 1.4 billion citizens. And this is why China is the world's manufacturing hub, producing everything mankind needs, from household products, generic drugs, electronics, mobile phones and accessories, cars, machines and equipment products, and so on. Meanwhile, China is racing ahead, deploying gilt-edged innovative technology both in the design and manufacturing in critical sectors such as transportation, telecommunications, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, mega infrastructure construction, and building engineering, etc., etc. Here are a few snippets, of how China is dominating the world. Just watch this couple of videos, just a few minutes. This will give you a broader context of how China, seeks to dominate and is actually dominating the world. Watch.
The Yangtze River was chosen as the location for the Three Gorges Dam because it has an exceptionally large solid granite river valley. In the first segment of the river, about 1 million square kilometers of land has been taken under control, and the average amount of water passing through the river each year reaches 500 billion cubic meters. It is the world's most gigantic concrete structure. It took 40,000 employees and 17 years to build, and according to China, it cost $37 billion. To complete the project, they needed nearly 6 billion gallons of concrete and 463,000 tons of steel, which is enough to construct 63 Eiffel Towers. They installed 32 huge generators that weigh 6,000 tons each. With the activation of these 32 generators, the Three Gorges Dam has reached its full capacity. These 32 main turbines, each with a capacity of 700 megawatts, and two small turbines, each with a capacity of 50 megawatts, can generate enough electricity to run 15 nuclear reactors, weigh enough to provide energy for 60 million people. The dam's only aim is not to generate power. It also serves various other functions and purposes, including flood prevention, transportation, aquaculture, tourism, ecological protection, environmental cleanup, water transit from China's south to its north, and irrigation. It solves a major issue by holding the river at bay during the flood season. It helps protect millions of people downstream, including significant Yangtze-adjacent cities like Wuhan, Nanjing, and Shanghai. The dam creates a reservoir that covers approximately 405 square miles, which is quite large. It is also claimed that this dam reduced 1.4 million tons of carbon dioxide.
Considered one of the most challenging construction projects globally, China's Yangtze Expressway is an engineering marvel slicing through Sichuan's rugged mountains. This 127-mile artery connects Ya'an to Xichang, crossing 12 earthquake fault zones in some of China's most treacherous terrain. Built over 5 years with a $3 billion investment, it stands as a modern engineering triumph. Dubbed the Sky Road, the expressway climbs 25 feet every 0.6 miles, with a 32-mile stretch ominously called the Devil's Road. Comprising 55% bridges and tunnels, it features the Labajin Bridge, one of the world's tallest, with piers nearly 200 meters high. Despite constant threats from landslides, rock bursts, and gas spouts, the design minimized environmental impact with spiral tunnels. The Yaxi Expressway is not just a road, but a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance against extreme natural.
Have you ever seen a train running on a road without tracks? It sounds like a fantasy, but it has actually happened in China. It's called the Intelligent Rail Transit, aka IRT, a new type of public transportation that operates on electricity with zero pollution and emissions. It doesn't require track construction or overhead wires. The entire vehicle seems to float above the ground, designed with a maximum speed of 60 miles per hour. Furthermore, the IRT adopts the flexible grouping mode of high-speed trains, with each section capable of carrying 100 passengers, which is 10 times the capacity of a regular bus. With the introduction of the IRT, the perennial issue of traffic congestion during peak hours in cities is no longer a problem. If you're wondering about the difference between this and a bus, besides the increased passenger capacity, the most notable feature of the IRT is its ground communications signal system. As the train approaches a traffic light intersection, it sends a priority command to the traffic light base station. The red light immediately turns green, ensuring the train's priority passage. Equipped with a fully automated driving system and utilizing virtual track following control technology, the IRT identifies virtual track routes on the road through onboard sensors, resembling surface traffic lines. Through active safety control, onboard signal control, machine vision, and other systems, the train is electronically constrained, precisely controlling its movement along the virtual tracks to achieve intelligent operation. Traffic congestion will soon become a thing of the past. Soon enough, cities all across China will be hopping on the IRT train, delivering a hefty dose of convenience to urban dwellers. Buckle up. The future just got a whole lot more interesting.
What are some of the secrets to China's sudden? There's nothing sudden about what China has done, you know. Anyway, what are some of the secrets to China's sudden rise to global economic dominance? Also, what lessons can other nations learn from this? Here are some of these secrets. Number one, merit-based political leadership. Merit-based government and political leadership. The governing Chinese Communist Party recruits young, superbly educated men who are then given leadership tasks with clear goals and results. It is on the basis of this, results, alone, that these young men are promoted to higher levels in the leadership cadre in China. Critically, also the governors of the 33 or 34 provinces in China, and the leadership of China ensures these governors of the various provinces are not from those provinces, and so have no inherent bias or loyalty to those provinces. Rather, these governors are sent directly from Beijing, that is the capital of China, to man or to head those provinces, and they also give them targets, and each of those provinces, each of the governors from the provinces, are matched against each other. They compete against each other. They give them targets, and at the end of the day, their individual performances are assessed, and the best get rewarded with further higher promotion. Those who are not performing are dropped, or moved out of leadership. And this is a system pretty much like how the chief executive officer of a business sends branch managers to different places, and whose performances in turn are assessed purely on their productivity and the attainment of set targets and goals. Most leaders of Chinese government and elites are products of the number one university in China, which is Tsinghua University, or even Harvard, Yale, MIT, Stanford in America, other top Ivy League universities in the world, Oxford, Cambridge, and these are deliberately put, so China deliberately puts the best people in government, not riffraffs, not imbeciles, not clowns, not jokers, but serious-minded, superbly educated people, and that's the merit-based, leadership recruitment. Number two secret of China's dominance. Number two secret: human capacity development. China has over 1.4 billion population that's essentially highly skilled, highly motivated, and highly patriotic individuals. I'd let this couple of videos speak more on this, principle of developing their human capacity, superb development of their human capacity. Watch this couple of videos.
There's a confusion about China, and let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. The reason is because of the skill, the quantity of skill in one location, and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really advanced tooling, and the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. In the US you could have a meeting of tooling engineers and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep.
But first, here's my take. When historians write about the challenges to America's global hegemony, they will point to the rise of China, the first full-fledged peer competitor to the United States in decades. They'll also note the return of Russia and its efforts to disrupt the American-led security order in Europe. These are familiar patterns in the rise and fall of world powers. What's new and surprising is that these challenges, far from uniting America, have turned it on itself, with its government tearing down many of the crucial elements of America's extraordinary success. Consider the Nature Index, perhaps the most comprehensive guide to high-quality research in the sciences. It tracks contributions to the world's leading academic journals. Its newest rankings show what scientists already know. China is leaping ahead. Of the top 10 academic institutions in the Nature Index, 9 are now Chinese. But still sitting in the topmost position on that list is an American institution, Harvard. And it is this university that Donald Trump is trying to destroy. The Trump administration's war on Harvard is bizarre in many ways. Claiming to be about fighting anti-Semitism, it has demanded that the university cede control over large parts of its academic affairs and hand over private information about its international students.
So, in essence, from the first video you saw, what Mr. Tim Cook, the Chief Executive Officer of Apple Incorporated, the world's most valuable brand and also the most capitalized company in the world, what he said, in essence, is that if you call for tooling engineers in the United States, tooling engineers, that's a branch of specialized engineering. If you call for applications of tooling engineers in America, you'll be fortunate if you get a hall filled with applicants in America. But switch over to China and you are able, and you call for tooling engineers, you would fill several stadiums. Several stadiums in America, in China, would show up. Tooling engineers will show up and fill several stadiums in China. And why is this so? Is it an accident? Definitely not. The Chinese leadership, deliberately, intentionally, ensured that their youth, possesses such highly skilled, knowledge, in such disciplines. Second video, also, Farid Zakaria, the host of Global Public Square, and by the way, my favorite television personality ever, and also a personal alter ego. It says, in essence, America's eventual demise won't be because of anything external, but pretty much internal disintegration. Like the olden days, the historical Roman Empire that unraveled from within. Why? one of the factors. There are a lot of factors, but a major one now. In open sight, President Trump, is busy attacking a major fulcrum of America's dominance of the world, which is the leadership, American leadership in specialized knowledge. By various Ivy League, universities, Harvard, Yale, MIT, Princeton, Stanford, Brown, Duke, and all of that, Penn, Trump is attacking these Ivy League universities, and whereas with his acute lack of, social awareness, I've said Trump is an illiterate, but, because of white supremacies and racism, they voted for him, he's totally unaware that China has caught up, not just catching up, closed the gap and has overtaken America, in the domain that was hitherto an exclusive preserve of America in the area of specialized knowledge. China has overtaken America. What used to give America competitive advantage to the rest of the world, attracting the best and the brightest from the rest of the world, China has closed that gap. China is leading. Of course, they have the population, and they're producing smart, youths, and they're injecting this into their system, thereby producing, great businesses, great leadership, and all of that. Now, number 3 reason why China is becoming a dominant power in the world. Number 3, a disciplined, focused, but particularly stable and predictable government system. Unlike in America, for instance, where it's democracy. If every 4 years you have to change government or renew the mandate of a particular government, whereas of the 4-year term, 2 years is devoted to a bruising and unproductive election cycle, leaving only 2 years, for actual governance. In China, in contrast, they have no such, luxury. China has limitless time to focus, squarely on governance and providing service, to the people and to the rest of the world. It's because Chinese system of government is anchored on a one-party, a system and a leadership selection, like I said earlier, that is purely based on merit. So our leadership selection is fairly predictable, orderly, and all of that. At least it's been in the last 6 years or so. Number 4, reason or secret. Number 4, a clear and seamless leadership succession. Until current President Xi Jinping in China, every president after Deng Xiaoping, who governed from 1978 to 1989, every president after Deng has done, a 10-year single term in office. And then a seamless transfer of power to the next. From Deng to Jiang Zemin, from Jiang Zemin to Hu Jintao. It was only Xi, after Xi took over, I amended the constitution to give him limitless time in office. But even besides that, the succession from Xi to the next president is pretty much straightforward. It's not going to be by a rancorous, very, very cantankerous politics and all of that. No. Now, 5th and final reason I'll talk about here is social order and cohesion. In China, there's a zero tolerance for social crisis of any sort. Criminal activities and all of that, banditry, terrorism, all that you have all over Africa, all over the world, even America, racial tensions and all of that. There's a zero tolerance for, social crisis in China. And some criminal activities are dealt with ruthlessly, especially corruption, which usually carries the maximum penalty. And in addition to this, little room is given, to lawyers and judges to abuse the judicial system. I've studied China pretty much, and I know that they clamp down heavily on judges and lawyers that abuse the judicial process. In fact, judges and lawyers that engage in corruption of judges and lawyers or whatever of the system are given also the same treatment, as corruption in China. And also, deviant behaviors, like I said, insidious activities, unpatriotic conduct of pressure groups, civil society organizations are discouraged in China. Guess what? Even social media is highly regulated, in China, to avoid wholesale cultural infiltration and brainwashing, by, foreign countries. And that's why even in China, their social media is cloned, actually. So WhatsApp that we have in the rest of the world, in China, it is WeChat. Facebook, for instance, you have Weibo. So they do not, allow this wholesale dumping of foreign cultural beliefs, practices, ideologies, and behaviors. No, Now, having said all of this, how has these 5 stated factors, how have they, especially the meritocracy in leadership, recruitment, and human capacity development. These two, how have these helped China? Practically, tangibly, empirically, how have these helped China? Let me give some sobering perspective. Today, as I speak here, China is the second largest economy globally, with a nominal GDP of 19.3 trillion US dollars, next to America, and then a per capita income of about 14,000 US dollars per citizen. However, like I said, this is nominal GDP, but if we use data or statistics on purchasing power parity, China is the largest economy with an almost 40 trillion GDP, first in the world. And then the per capita income also goes up. Now, most significantly and poignantly also, China earned 3.57 trillion in export revenues in the year 2024, received 3.57 trillion US dollars earned, as export revenues in the year 2024, just last year. This is almost 78% higher, for context, than the overall 2.8 trillion GDP of the entirety of Africa. Let me break it down. What China earned as export revenues, just export revenues alone, which is a component of its overall GDP. What it earned from export revenues is almost 78, it's not almost, about 78% higher than the entire GDP of Africa. 54 countries that make up Africa. China's export revenue is higher than that. China's export revenue is 3.57 trillion. The overall GDP of 54 African countries is 2.8, trillion dollars. And this is why, Chinese leaders, Xi Jinping or whoever, can summon all the 54 African presidents to Beijing, and line them up and begin to hand out doles and loans to them. What a shame, are we? No. So, if you don't insist on merit in political leadership and a fastidious devotion to equipping your youth with specialized knowledge and, high demand technology and engineering skills, you are never going to compete in the global arena, but remain a perpetual debtor and beggar nation or continent. Now, as a wrap up, while the United States is still drunk in the hubris of its military might, necessitating the US always having to get enmeshed in needless wars and conflicts globally. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we all witnessed how America, for no reason, went into Iran and began bombing Iran, and what is going on, in Gaza between Palestine and Israel and all of that. When America finally realized that this over concentration of its resources, in military establishments, warfare, and all of that, when they realized that it's a strategic blunder, it would have been too late. Actually, I think it's already too late, because now, leaving America, coming to Western European traditional Axis powers, Germany, United Kingdom, France, and the rest of them, there, in this whole conversation about China's rise and dominance as against, America and all of that, the Western traditional European Axis powers are mere spectators in this emergent Chinese global ascendancy. They are not anywhere near competing against China, except the entire European Union as a bloc, is competing against China. And then even if you look at that, there's no comparison whatsoever. Now, so these Western European traditional Axis powers are left grasping for relevance through soft power diplomacy via an insistence on good governance, rule of law, respect for human rights, and then advocacy on clean energy and climate change and all of that, etc., etc. Talking about the Arabs of Middle East, predominantly Muslim countries, these are just content to be strategic allies or partners to both the United States and China. Ensuring they walk the delicate tightrope between these two countries, major, powers, and insisting only on trade, commerce, and technology transfer. So the Arabs, the Middle Eastern countries are careful not to get involved in the global tensions, the geopolitical tensions between China and America. They are just ensuring they stay right in the middle, not aligning themselves with either of these, because they need both of them, Now that leaves okay. If you talk about Latin America, these are they're always going to be under the aegis, of America. So whatever America decides is what happens. The Latin American countries, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Nicaragua. So America dominates, Cuba, America dominates, and decide what happens there. Now let's talk about Africa. My dear Africa. Well, we're still sleeping actually. We can't even tell what time of day it is yet. We're still sleeping. Our so-called leaders are busy commissioning event centers, bus terminals, 30 kilometers of road projects as great, achievements. Just listening to the various conversations around leadership selections in Nigeria, for instance. Just listen. Sit down, watch the news. The news commentaries on various Nigerian media outlets, read the newspapers and all of that, the conversations around leadership selection, is still primarily centers around issues of, factors such as ethnicity, religion, zoning arrangements, etc., etc. Little whatsoever, is demanded on merit or competence. And so I've said it before, when the rest of civilization have long relocated to Mars or the moon, we poor Africans will rule over this polluted and violated earth. That's what we're going to be left with. Because we, like I said earlier, we haven't no clue what is going on around the world. We're here busy deceiving ourselves, that we're engaged in serious issues of governance and all of that. Our leaders, the leading men in our societies, are interested in houses, Rolls Royces. My father is richer than your father. My mother was this, my father was that, and going to churches to celebrate, commissioning bus stops and road and 10 kilometer stretch of road. You saw the videos of what is going on in China, but here we've been building 5,000 megawatt power stations for 30 years, and Jakarta still for donkey years, steel companies. I mean, that's it. We're engaged we're stagnated, caught in a time warp. We don't even know what is going on with the rest of the world, and the youth that ought to be the drivers, the engine of growth and progress, they are given student loans that keeps them perpetually, going around, like I call them certificated illiterates, because rather than build, an education system that is focused on grooming children or youths with specialized skills and knowledge, no, we do this herd mentality. Everybody goes to school just to come out with a certificate so they can get a job, but not to build a nation that competes with the rest of the world. In my lifetime, I hope I'll live long enough in my 90s to see a Nigeria that is ready, or an Africa that is ready to compete with the rest of the world. I hope and I pray. Thank you for listening. God bless Africa and God bless Nigeria. Bye for now.